numbers that we can to show you exactly where we are. As soon as we get updated information, we update it in our budget book, update it in our budget, and see where it puts us. So I just want to let you know that this is forever changing until we finalize. First, we're going to talk about the revenues. Then we'll move on to the expenditures. We'll start with the revenues, and there are 3 different types of revenues that we look at here. Our local revenues, which are monies that are produced generally within the district. It's our EIT is our big one, and our real estate taxes. State revenues, monies that are coming from the state of Pennsylvania and distributed to all the districts. Federal revenues, these are monies coming from federal sources made available to the school district through direct grant, state channels, or other agencies conducting programs throughout the district. I feel like I have my back to a lot of people, and I'm really sorry. Can everyone hear me okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, first we're going to look at the local revenues. When we start looking at this, we see that the current real estate taxes have an increase. That is for the building project and other increase that we need to maintain our budget. Then you see the interim real estate taxes. We left that currently where we budgeted last year because that seems to be where it's falling this year, and it's had a good pattern over the last 5 years. Public utility realty taxes. Those are currently a little bit lower. They're closer to $16,000 than they are to $17,000, so I dropped them down to the $16,000. They're just over. They're like $16,000 a few dollars, so it's closer to the $16,000 there. The payments in lieu of taxes, that we are remaining steady at $30,000. I'm comfortable with that. The big one is the earned income taxes. You'll see that has dropped $400,000. I think that's very important that we take a look at that. So I have another slide on that, so I'm going to pass by that one right now, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Real estate transfer taxes falling in line right where it should be at $200,000. Delinquent real estate taxes. This I have dropped to $470,000. It's a $60,000 drop. And believe it or not, our collection rate in our district is 96.2%. As you saw earlier, we are only turning over a little under $500,000 this year to be collected. Our current collections as of the beginning of last week was $629,142.37. That's all that the county tax office has to collect for us. So I think getting 530 will be really pushing it. Year to date, we've only received $268,522.67 on that. So I think we need to lower that a little bit, but that's also a good thing because that means people are paying their taxes before they go to collections, okay? So that's a good and a bad. Per capita taxes, we talked about those a little bit during the meeting. We wrote off some of that debt, and we just have a little under $3,000 left out there to be collected. I think if we get the $600 total, we'll be good. We should be writing off all that debt though with next year, so that won't be there any longer. Earnings on investments holding steady at $10,000. Athletic event emissions, that's pretty steady at where it has been the last couple years, so we're going to leave that at $46,000. I'm hoping, with the improved facilities, we may see a little bit of increase to some of our basketball games and our wrestling, so we may see that increase next year, and then we'll be able to budget more for that. But I have to follow what the trend has been over the past 5 years, and that follows right in line with that. Participation fee for activities. I have increased that by $500 because that has seemed to have an increase the last couple years, and I'm comfortable with increasing that the $500 there up to $6,500. IDA funding, that has an increase this year of $40,000, and that's coming from the U.S. Department of Education Office of Special Education Programs. That's distributed through the local intermediate unit for Part B of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It provides education assistance for appropriate public education for children ages 3 to 21. Facility rentals, we're going to hold fast at $3,000, but also with our improved facilities, I'd like to see our facilities rented out more, bring in some more revenue that way. But again, we have to stay with what we've been trending over the past 5 years. Tuition payments, we have an increase of tuition payments. These are for driver's ed, summer school, tuition from other educational facilities. We're increasing that by $4,000. It's been up there a little bit, and I'm comfortable with increasing that. No revenue from community service activities. Miscellaneous revenue, this is like our tax cert fees, student tobacco violation, refunds on prior year expenditures. That averages about $20,000. So we're going to leave that there right now. This is our millage rate history for the last 10 years. We had a couple years where it stayed the same, increased a little, stayed the same, increased. We've slowly been seeing the increases due to the building project. Okay. On December 6th, the board adopted a resolution which limits the real estate increase for the fiscal year of 17-18 to the maximum of 3.2% over the prior year. So that allows us to raise it 0.46 mils. Our total maximum real estate millage rate increase is 0.46, which would take us up to 14.99 if the board chooses to do so. So that is the history of where we are with our millage rate over the past 10 years. This is the slide that I find very interesting and scary. This is something that is very difficult to predict. You see our 10-year history here. We are averaging right around 3 mils. Then around 2012, 2013, whoa, we see a huge jump. What happened? Gas, okay? We see that go up again, 13, 14. That's where we peak. Then we see 14, 15, slowly creeping down. 15, 16, slowly creeping down, but not a whole lot. You know, we're still doing pretty well. Right now, we are currently down 7.9% to last year, which is $155,537 below where we were at the end of last February. I do not believe 16-17 is going to come in at 3.5 million, but I could be wrong, and we're going to watch it and keep a close eye on it until we finalize this budget, because we want to be as accurate as possible. If we come in higher the next couple months, I'm going to say that 3.1 that I have budgeted for 17-18, I'm going to increase it to fill the pattern. Okay, we're always looking at what we've done over the past 5 years, but when we see a big drop off, we have to acknowledge that and make sure that we're aware of where our revenues could drop, because that's a big decrease. If you go from 13, 14, where it was almost $3.8 million, down to 3.1, that's over $500,000 lost just in revenue there, okay? So that's something we'll talk about probably at every board meeting until we approve this. So we're going to move on to state revenue. This information is based on the governor's 2017-2018 proposed educational budget that was provided to me in February of 2017. Okay? You will see here that the basic ed subsidy looks like it's actually a decrease. But in 2016, the PA block grants were budgeted with the basic instructional subsidy. So it comes out to be an increase overall, but it looks like a decrease up there, and I just wanted to explain why that looks like a decrease. Our special education subsidy did come in at a decrease of $8,919. Our transportation is a big one. You know, there's been a lot of talk about a cut in the transportation. They want us to do different things to try to get our transportation costs lower, and they're trying to get our subsidy for transportation to be a little bit less than what it has been. So if that does happen, we are going to lose $43,000. So we have to watch that and see what's going on with that, and to make a best decision for our district on how we want to budget that information. Rental and sinking fund payments, that's down $12,190. That is PlanCon money, which, because of the way our payments are structured, that fluctuates a little bit each year. That is the money for McCall Middle School. There is no monies for PlanCon budgeted in this budget for the high school project, because we do not know what that number is yet. Once we get that number, we will start figuring out how much we want to plan on receiving. Last year we did have a little bit of difficulty receiving that money. We did finally receive it, so we'll look at that once we know how much we are getting back. And PlanCon H is almost completed, and should be going out in the mail by the end of the week, so hopefully we'll have that number soon. Medical and dental services, budgeting about the same. State property tax reduction allocation. We do not have a number from the state on this yet, but it is pretty much, it's the homestead tax credit. It stays about the same every year, so we left that alone. The PA block grant, you see the increase, but the decrease up above. The other income from the state, you're going to see an increase there, but that's because as wages increase and PSER costs increase, that goes up because that's the state's portion of the PSER's costs and the FICA costs. So that's why you see the increase there. It's offsetting some of our increases. Federal. Anyone have any idea what's going to happen with the federal? 2017-18 federal revenue budget is based on the most recent allocations for 16-17. I do not know what the federal government's going to decide to do. We can only hope that they will keep providing us with what they have in the past. As far as access funding, last year in 15-16, we did not get any access money. We have to apply for it. We did not apply for it because there wasn't as much in there at the time, so we didn't feel the need to apply for it. We have currently applied for our balance in access funding, which is $25,000. I am thinking next year we probably will not receive access money, and then the following year we will take it out once it builds up and becomes a larger amount. It looks like that's kind of a couple years they've not taken it and then taken it, not taken it and then taken it. So I think that looks to be about a pattern. So I took it out of the budget for next year. Now if we see that, hey, they're going to give us more money in access, we may decide to put that back in. Now here's the fun part. Expenditures. First, we're going to talk about some things that affect our expenditures. First one, wages. Okay? This budget does not propose the replacement of all employees and positions contained in the 2016-17 budget. Okay? That's why we are seeing a decrease in wages. The decrease percentage is almost 4%, 3.95. The positions that are retiring are not built into this budget. That would be the 2 principals, the 3 teachers, and the full-time aide. Also not included are the positions that left during the year and have not currently been replaced. Can you say that again? Say the whole thing again? Yeah. Okay. This budget does not have the people that are retiring, the 2 principals, the 3 teachers, and the full-time aide built into it. It also does not include the positions that left during the year and were not replaced. We have an IT person, technology coach, curriculum director, and 1 part-time aide.
So they're not going to be replaced?
They are not in the budget. Okay? The next area that we're going to talk about is PSERS. PSERS is something that is hurting districts across the state of Pennsylvania. We cannot keep up with PSERS. PSERS will increase from 30.03% to 32.57%. Even with the decrease in wages, we are still seeing an increase in what we have to pay 4 Psers. The district share comes out to $71,300. This is something that the state needs to change. We can't keep going in this direction, paying all these costs for Psers. The next thing affecting the budget is the health insurance. The health insurance is through the Lycoming County Insurance Consortium Pooled Trust. That is collectively increasing 10% for the 17-18 school year. The total budgetary cost increase for the district is $30,473. That's approximately only 1.04% increase. This percentage is different because it does not include, due to the increase in the number of employees being eligible for the insurance, okay? And the movement of the employees to the high deductible plan. We made a decision to move employees to the high deductible plan, or they pay the 20% premium share to stay on the other plans. That helps offset some of the increase in costs.
So that, just to clarify, that 30,000 was with the action taken tonight of moving the pupil status figured into that 30,000?
Yes, that's already figured in.
Since you had it on the agenda and you motioned it and carried it,
Yes.
that's with that plan you
That's-
approved tonight?
That is with what was on the approved tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, here we go with the budget overview. The 100s salaries and the 200s the employee benefits. You see a decrease in those because of the reduction in staff. The 300s, you see an increase. This is for your purchase professional and technical services. A lot of that has to do with services that we purchase through the IU. Part of that is the part-time curriculum person that we are going to be getting from the IU next year. 400s are purchase property services. This is extermination, water, sewer, electric, trash, repairs, copiers. You see that went down just a little bit there at $21,000. Other purchase services went up a little bit, almost $70,000, and that's the LCTC program, the transportation, postage, tuition, travel, and insurance. The 600s, the supplies. This is oil, cleaning supplies, all the way down to the pencils the students use every day. This is everything. We're seeing a decrease in that of $189,615. And this, everyone here at the district has been watching, what they're requesting, using what we have, trying to make everything stretch as far as they can to help reduce the supplies. So that's why you do see the reduction there. We're going to move on to property in the 700s. That's your equipment purchases. You'll see a decrease there of $23,000. The 800s is for items such as the water operating licensing that we have to have up here at the valley, dues, registrations, fees, car registrations, vehicle registrations, trailer registrations, those kind of items. We'll see just a slight decrease there. And then the use of other funds. This is your debt service payments, your budgetary reserves, your student activities. We're seeing an increase there of $101,000. That is due to increase of the debt service payments for the following year. So overall, we are seeing a decrease in the budget 2016 to 2017 of just under $500,000. Prospectus. What was originally budgeted for 16-17? Revenues, the expenditures. The expenditures exceeded the revenues by just over $2 million. Where we have it to date, the expenditures still exceed the revenues about $1.3 million. So if we end up being over $1.3 million, our beginning fund balance in the 16-17 school year was $2,731,742. We come in over $1,358,393. That is going to leave us with a fund balance of $1,337,349. So going into this year, we stick with this budget. Our expenditures exceed our revenues almost $1.7 million. We don't have that left in fund balance. So that leaves us negative at the end of 2018 school year of $315,115. Okay? So let's take a future look and see what that means for 18-19 school year. Here, we've increased revenues. We're hoping that the state is going to give us another $100,000. And our local revenues will increase by approximately $345,000. So that gives us an increase in our revenues, taking us up to $28,311,505. Our expenditures, I'll tell you how I came up with this number. I'm expecting a payroll increase, and I feel this is being very conservative, of $200,000 for 18-19. PSERS increase of $278,000. Healthcare is projected increasing the minimum of 10% the next 4 years for our group. So I'm projecting that that will increase by $300,000. Transportation, $100,000. Debt service, scheduled to increase $100,000. Special education, $75,000. Charter schools are going to be quite interesting. $175,000. So that leaves our expenditures exceeding our revenues by almost $2.5 million in 18-19. Where does that leave us? At $2.8 million in the hole at the end of 18-19. So,
Over here.
you're over here. I will turn this over to Ms. Basin and let her discuss this.
Okay, so what Brandy has shared with you is the prospectus. Where are we? What does this mean? Where are we? And where are we actually going to go? And I think it's very important that you look at a budget as a living document. It means that it is something that you don't put up on a shelf and you don't say, okay, we'll get back to it at some other point. You don't do that in your homes, right? Your budget, you're constantly assessing. You are, correct? Because if you're not, I'm really worried about the rest of you too. When we're looking at a personal budget, and you are considering what your revenues are, we discussed this the last time when I did my fund balance presentation on why it's necessary for us to have a fund balance. Our fund balance is our savings account. And your fund balance at home and your savings account determine how fiscally sensible and how fiscally stable you are. So when we're talking here that we will have, number one, absolutely no money left in a fund balance, and we're going to have $2.7 million as a what if. We can't let that happen. The fiscal stability of the district is at risk. Okay? So Brandy has shared with you the facts of the matter. These are the facts. What I am going to speak with you about, and it can be a dialogue because at the end we want you to ask her questions and ask me questions, and you feel free at the end to ask anything you want. We're going to let the board have some time to do that as well. What I want to discuss with you is the emotion that is attached. I've always said that you don't mess with people's kids or money, and guess what? We're doing both, and that's the unfortunate truth. As we are trying to take this and balance this between what it is and what it needs to be, you are working with both of those entities. I need to speak to your emotions now, because many of you sitting here are parents, are grandparents, are people who are concerned about the youth of our community. So I want to speak to you about that, because as a parent myself, these are the questions that I would want to know. And in my district, I want to be able to tell you, yes, we can do these things, or no, that we can't. Or we're going to modify this and we're going to do something a little bit differently. Okay? Because if we don't change what we have done, we're not going to be solvent. We're not going to be here. Will my child be provided individualized attention? Yes. Your children are provided that individualized attention now, and they will be continuing to receive that type of attention. Many of you are looking around the room to the teachers that we have in our district. Those teachers are very good at what they do. They would not have been hired if they were not. But we need to shift some of our priorities because, as Mrs. Williamson talked about, we have a diverse population. And as that population becomes more diverse, there are much more needs within the community and within the youth that we are serving. So as we are looking at what that requires, we are trying to assess how do we get more services into that classroom. From what I'm understanding, a few years ago, you did have some services that pushed right into the classroom. You had RTI, which helped you with Tier 2 and Tier 3 development of the students. You actually had people in Title I maybe coming out and actually working within those classrooms, not just being segregated to working with the Title I capacity students. We would like to reprioritize that and get that back. And there are ways that we are going to look at doing that. And that is going to be using existing staff in different ways. It is going to be using staff who has experience in working with the types of students that we have currently and helping teachers develop that individualized attention. One of the other pieces that I can tell you with this individualized attention that is going to happen is, again, based on the contract that we have ratified with the teachers union. And what they have provided us is 12 minutes more a day. 12 minutes more a day to be part of a professional learning community. And that professional learning community is our teachers gathering and working on individualized instruction, working on looking at how we change assessments. What does the formative assessment look like? What's the summative assessments look like? How do we work with the student capacities that we have? And yes, you do get scores in July, but you can't break those down. You don't have any of that data yet to dig deeper to really help those students. But now we have 12 minutes a day to do that. Your teachers gave you that in their contract. That is going to help us provide that individualized attention. And we need that. Will my child be provided support if they are struggling in class? Again, if we can push back into the classrooms with the people that we already have, yes, you go to tier 2, you go to tier 3, you work through those RTII models and get those students caught back up to where they need to be. And many of the things that I'm speaking about are elementary and lower middle school levels that we're speaking to those particular students. Will my student have options? Absolutely. Absolutely they will have options. And I can't tell you how many times I heard this week that we were getting rid of the music department, basically, in the middle school. We were just deleting everything. And it went from here to here, back to here, back to here. We are not. No one can promise you that it's going to look the same, however. Okay? You will still have the arts. You will have athletics. There will be languages. We want the languages actually to be moving lower in the grades. If you know anything about languages, and I'm sure you do, you know that the dialect can only be learned at a younger age. Something to do with your palate formation and a few other things. So we will be providing those things for our younger students. Our more advanced students with the advanced placements, we need to continue that. That is a national curriculum that needs to keep expanding in our high schools. Technical programs, we will still have LCTC, and we're trying to model into some new technology programs. We've talked before about the biotechnical pieces. If you weren't here for that meeting, we discussed how could we move into careers that actually pay good wages for the people who either want to stay here or for those who want to go somewhere else. So we are looking at that. How do we do some of these things and also expand some of those opportunities at the secondary level? Again, you offer different vocational programs for the students who might not be going into college. You offer different types of programs here through a charter capacity, which, as Brandy said, who knows what is going to happen at the federal level. I mean, it could be dismantled. I've heard that conversation, that it's going to be, the Department of Ed is going to be dismantled, all the way down to, we're just going to take $20 billion away from you, so why should you care? I love that one. That's one of my favorites. $20 billion is going to be diverted back into private entities, charters that are for profit. They are not public. They have totally different rules and different mandates than what public education actually has. $20 billion that we all pay in is going to somewhere different. And if you are a parent who wants that choice, and you are, if you have a child, you have a choice where to send your students, especially if you're living in Philadelphia, Allegheny County, some areas where maybe it is too diverse for your child, where they have a lot of crime, where you can't even get kids to come to school. So we are doing a lot of the things here, and we will expand those opportunities. Will my child have the same level of safety provided to them currently? Yes. We are looking at all of the safety officers that we have. We are looking at restructuring them so that we have some more out on the lighter corner. Forgive me, Mr. Kurtz, but which corner is that?
That would be walnut and spruce.
Yeah.
Walnut and spruce. Okay. So we're looking to work within the staff that we already have, but to provide some different levels of security as well. But your students will continue that same level of security. Will the class sizes be increased at the elementary and the middle school levels? At this point, no. Your class sizes, and we're going to show you the elementary class sizes for a 12-year history here, and I'll do that here in a second. But what that slide does not talk about is the high school. Okay? At the high school level, when we look at the elementary and we look at the middle school numbers, those numbers range in the elementary from about 18 to the high of 20, Darren's not here, 29 is what I believe the last fourth grade just got in. So you are running the gamut. 18 students to 29 students is a very large difference when you're looking at that. In the middle school, you're running between 25 and 29. High school, it's not that way. Because the students are free to choose electives and to have different periods out, maybe in different functioning programs like our tech programs or our arts and humanities, they're running about 14 or 15. So that has to stop, and we have to flip that. We need the attention at the elementary school levels. We need more attention at the 5th and 6th grade levels. Then as they're becoming older, if they're going on to college, how many of you sat in a classroom with 15 in college? And if you did, awesome.
I did.
Okay. Very few. How many of you sat in classrooms of more than 100? There are those of us in public ed. We all went to public colleges. But our students, if you're going to ask me the question, is my student going to be life ready? Are they going to be career ready? We've got to get them used to, number one, online learning. We've got to get them used to a campus where they actually could take some dual enrollment credits. And we have to get them used to having a class size that is more around the 25 to 30 level, which we already have in the elementary and the middle school. Okay, so that has to switch a little bit. The new facility offers us great opportunities in being able to do that. We now have labs where we can schedule those, and chemistry and biology and all of the different sciences can be going on. So the new building will provide us those types of things that we didn't have before. This is probably the biggest one that I thought about and that I heard about. What happens when the principal is not in my child's school? And what that's referring to is either the high school principal going between the middle school and high school, or the elementary principal going between the two. This one is going to expand on what we currently do. Your principals are not in your building every day. They have sick days, as we're seeing. Poor Mr. Farrar. I'm going to talk about Mr. Farrar. He'll see us online, so hello, Mr. Farrar. He is ill today. So we have coverage with other principals. And next year, we are hoping to be able to do something of a model where we have a dean of students and possibly more guidance services at this building. Is that mine?
Yes.
I'm losing things. We also would like to move some of the special needs classrooms into lighter rather than having them here at the Valley. But we have to see space-wise what that looks like. Oh my, that is terribly small. Okay, this is a 12-year history going back to 0506, and it speaks to first grade running from 14 up to the highest that I see is 23. Second grade running from, I see a high of 23, a lot of 23s and a lot of 20s. The lowest looks like about 15. Third grade is coming in 24, seems to be, no, 25, 26 is the highest. The lowest seems to be up about 15 there, and that was in 2006-07. And fourth grade at the Valley, which is, again, we just changed those numbers again today. The high there is 28. The low looks, forgive me if I miss this, but I think it's 18 on there. So that's the Valley. Right, so that's what, there we go. And lighter. Lighter, the same thing. They are running from, it looks like 15 up to 24 for first grade over the 10-year period. Second grade looks like 18 to 25. That's either 23 or 25. I apologize. I was trying to put as much information as I could for you. Third grade running from 16, I see 26 as a high there. And then fourth grade running from, those numbers are all in the 20s, and it goes up to 27. The low looks to be about 20. I see 20. I see a 19 there as well. So again, we need to remodel where our priorities are with that. Will curriculum continue to be developed along with sharing of best practices and assessment methods? Again, I don't know of a better group of people to have as our teacher leaders than the people who are sitting in this room with you. They are going to be given the capacity of having teacher leadership positions amongst all of the curriculum. I don't think that happened in the past. So we want to be able to go out and we want to be able to ask the questions. We want the input into that curriculum. We want the teachers being able to work on instructional best practices and models and assessments and what do you do and how do you do it. They're the best ones. It's great that we can, attain different levels of leadership in schools, but your teachers know. Your teachers are the ones in the classroom. They know how to do this. We're going to be relying on them. We're also going to be working with Blast IU. We have them coming in next year 2 days a week. At this point, if that's what the board decides, we'll have that model be our model. And they will help us lead into having curriculum that is written to the standards, because we have some curriculum that is not written to the standards right now. And we need to have that written to the standards. We have to start and make sure that the curriculums that we have are going to be curriculums that are needed if they are not your core standards. So that is going to be a great work in progress for us. Will my child still have bus transportation available? Yes. If you offer it to one, you have to offer it to everybody. That is the state law. Okay. I know that those questions are on your mind. I know that those questions are right here for you, or else you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here representing your children or your jobs or anything that means something. It's right here. So now I need for you to follow me just for a little bit, because we need to move from what motivates us and what our emotions are for our students into what is actually happening out there. Why are so many schools facing budget crisis like they have never before? Are they totally mismanaged? No, they're not totally mismanaged. Could they be? Possibly. But you can't tell me out of 500 districts that when you talk about a percentage increase of those districts and the majority is having a financial crisis, that it has something to do with them all the time. It doesn't. So what I need to share with you is the leading causes of what is happening in public education. And I said that we would get to the word pension. So the pension system is PESERS, Public School Employees Retirement System, on and on. And I know that it wasn't the last meeting, probably, it was the last meeting, wasn't it? It was the last meeting, yes. The last meeting, I asked for your help. I asked you to contact your legislators, because when we look at this for Montoursville, and I have a slide on it again, the amount that we're paying into the PESER system went from $509,000, well over $3 million. Okay, that's great for people who are in the system, but when you are trying to give your students the very best that you can in a classroom, that money is totally escaping that classroom, not hitting the classroom. So this is a slide that I took from a presentation that was done for school board members. We had 4 members go to this presentation, and I was there, and I thought that some of the slides that they had were so eye-opening that I needed to share those with all of you. And again, this is trying to help you understand what's happening in a global perspective across the state. When you have expenditures in all districts that are increasing 2.5%, that is the stuff that they can control. As you look around at this administrative table and the board table, that is the amounts that they can control. But when you're talking about the things that are out of our control, and I think I used the word pickpockets at one point here, pension is one of them. Pension has gone up 257%, while everything else has gone up 2.5%. Does that make sense to you? Okay. Doesn't make sense to us either, but we have to live within that. And it is a daunting task to live within that. Here's another, and this is representing all of the districts across the state in Pennsylvania. When we have all other expenditures, and that could be everything. That could be transportation, that could be your tech costs, that could be your health insurance, that could be everything. If everything else is going up 4.9%, how are people capable of making these changes to their budgets? You can see the second one. It's in people. Okay? Because I don't care how many pencils you get rid of, you're never going to balance a budget on getting rid of pencils. Again, I'm saying this very matter-of-factly, and I don't mean to harm anyone. It is the facts of what it is. So then when we look at charter school, another one of my favorites, because charter school, again, is outside what we can control. If a student and parent chooses that they want to be in a charter, they have that right. That's school choice. They have the right. Do you know how that is funded? And I know that we discussed this before, so if I'm boring some of you, I apologize. But let me explain to you. When we have students coming on our rolls, we get money for every weighted average daily membership that we have. So that money comes in under the basic education funding. We're going to talk about that too. As the charter school student says, I wish to leave your district, that funding gets cut off. So any funding that we get that is cut off, that's one source that we lose. But then we have to pay the charter school. That's the second edge of that sword. Okay, did you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Just as long as you're paying attention.
We pay the charter school.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we lose money, pay the charter school.
You lose money, you pay the charter school.
Lose and gain under that.
Double-edged sword.
Does the charter school get the weighted money then?
What's that?
Does the charter school get the weighted money that you lost?
No, they only get what you give them that way.
And is it correct that that went from 70,000 to, in 2006, 270,000 now?
Yes, it
That's
did.
correct.
Yes. Yes. Scott is addressing something that we talked about in the last meeting as well. Charter schools for Montoursville Area School District, again, is like every other school district. It went from 70,000 plus in 2005-06 to $276,000 in 15-16. Money escaping your classrooms. Okay, do you see where I'm going with this? Oh my God, I have crickets again. Come on, come on, okay, stick with me here. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Okay, so this one, when we saw this one at the seminar that we went to, this one was completely telling. The blue is the model of the state revenue increases. So I want you to look at that. There is the blue, 250, 260, 460, 375. That's the millions of dollars that's coming out and going into education, all right? The red is the pension increase that is expected for every district in the state. The green is the net loss. Okay, do you know what that one says? In the short term, that one says you can't tax your way out of this. Under Act 1, you can't tax your way out of this. Why do you think districts are letting people go? They don't have a way out of this. Because some in this room are going to say, you know what, tax me. I'll pay it. It's worth it. We can't. You have an index that you have to live within. Some of you are saying, I don't want my taxes raised. There's the balance. That's the balance. This one to me was just, that showed me exactly what it is. So for Montoursville, again, this is where we are. 509 was what we paid in 2005-06, and we get half of that back. Because what you have to know about the retirement system is that it is a three-pronged approach. I call it a triangle. The first prong on the very top is the employee. The employee must make contributions. Once you are in a class of employee, that's the contribution that you have throughout the life of your career in public education, unless they change something at PSERS. That's the first level. The second level is that the district must contribute whatever the state determines through the PSERS board to contribute. So when we're looking back, when I started as an old-timer now, I was 26 when I came in, so I wasn't old then. It was less than 5 cents on the dollar that PSERS got from the districts, and then they contributed half back. That's the third piece of that triangle. Okay, so at 509, and we get half of that back, to move up to $3,175,000, and okay, we get half of that back. It's still millions of dollars every year that you don't have, that we have to be pushing out to somewhere else. And we have to be conscientious of. That's why I'm saying the speed at which public education is being, I'll call it taken advantage of that way, is sad. It's very sad. And the federal government is not going to make that any better at this point. So go home, and I want you to start researching. What does the federal government think they're going to do? There again, just visual so that you can see the chart and what it actually looks like for our retirement costs. Okay, so then funding in public ed. Here's your basic ed funding in 2005-06. Remember, that is the funding that you get from the state for the purposes of educating your students. Okay, you can see that it says $6 million, and for 16-17, we're budgeting $7,213,000. Okay. Special ed funding, $1,137,000 to $1,261,000. What do you see wrong with that picture? The need of special ed is going up, not just in our district, but as a society. Those of you in teaching capacity understand this every single day. Okay? So as that's going up, you would think that there would be a little bit more dollars available to help those students with those special needs so that they too have an opportunity. But I want you to focus on 2011, 12, 13, and 14. That's not a typo. They flatlined you. They flatlined what you were getting in special ed. So as the basic ed and special ed fundings are not moving at a rate that they could move, because Pennsylvania is 47th in the nation for educational funding. 47th. So either Tennessee, Arkansas, Alabama, North Carolina, or one of the Virginias gets to beat us on that list. That's pretty sad, because we're not a commonwealth that is poor. But as you can look at that, you can now see that the taxpayers are responsible for 56% of our budgets, and the state is responsible for 42%. The Constitution says that they're supposed to be picking up the tab at 50%. Okay? Again, just showing you the visuals. Here they are. The only line that seems to be moving in any direction up is your tax revenues. And Brandy explained how very delicate they are right now. This is us. This is not any other district. Here's our funding, and then there is our pension. So look at 11, 12 forward. Here is our funding, and there is our pension. It exactly mirrors exactly what we saw in the projection that the state showed at PSBA. Okay? I know. I can read thought bubbles. I can read faces. I know exactly what you're thinking. Because I thought the same thing. And we've been working on this since October. So in looking at these numbers and seeing how they changed and running into Brandy's office and working with the administrative teams and working with the teachers and going to the custodians, we have talked to everybody. We have shared this as the common understanding so that people get it. And unfortunately, we have met with groups who are going to have to sacrifice so that we can balance things. We've not left anybody out. We've met with cafeteria, we've met with bus contractors. I needed ideas from everybody. And honestly, the only comment I think that has upset me through this whole thing is weak leadership asks for ideas from other people. And I absolutely disagree with that. And I will continue to disagree with that. Because what the teachers, what the custodians, what the cafeteria have brought forth, what the transportation providers have brought forth for us, and actually being able to have a conversation of how do we do this together has been magnificent. The ideas have been awesome. And we're going to listen to those ideas, and we're going to make this a living document in the future. So some of the changes. Let's talk some wide scope changes first. All right, moved to energy conservation programs. What does that mean? Well, it means a few things. That we've talked about making sure that the buildings are cleaned for the summer and shut down so that we are not paying for air conditioning, we are not paying for freezers and compressors and every other thing. Who is it benefiting at that point? If you have a use of facilities, we'll move it around and we'll accommodate somehow to do that. But what we're going to do is shut things down as much as possible. It's energy being expended while people are not there. Your students aren't there. Most of you are not there. So we need to do that. We're going to take the support staff.
Christina, can I ask you a question on that?
At the end, could you just hold on with me just for a second, because I know this is where people get very interested.
Okay.
We're going to provide a win-win for staff as well as taking money back off of those utilities that Brandy already shared with you. And what that's going to be is that the custodial maintenance staff works 2,080 hours a year. We're going to take those 2,080 hours and condense them so that we can have the district shut on certain days in the summer that way, so that we can pick up savings over the hottest months of the year to be able to do that. Regulating the building temperatures is nothing new. I think every district does that. Starting and stopping times of the heating system, everybody does that. Eliminating personal appliances. All right, I'm looking at all of you. If you're in a classroom, please, no fridges, no microwaves. We'll buy you a coffee maker one so that you have it. We'll buy you a fridge so that you have it. But I'm asking that those things be removed. As I am personal printers and we need to use the large-scale copiers. So that's why we need to look at something that would be a plan of action in putting that back together. Okay, so we're looking at energy, we're looking at rescheduling days, we're looking at making sure that we are using paper and copiers to the best of our ability. I can't tell you how honest our parent group is that we deal with under the Act 48, because they came in and told us, please stop sending us papers. We don't read them. I was like, all right, okay. So that was one of them, the BMI. Everybody who has a child, you get a BMI that tells you how much your child weighs, what their height is, and what they should be. I'm probably over my BMI by about 140%. So I don't want to see that on paper, personally. But that's the state's requirement. It is a mandate that we send those things out. We would like to be able to ask your permission. Is that something that you really want us to send out, or can we send it to you electronically? So that we can actually stop doing those types of communications via paper. All right, that might not sound like a lot to you, but when we're talking thousands of reams of paper, it is a lot.
Like the beginning of school documents?
Like the beginning of
All
school
those
documents.
A lot of
That's the
places
ones that
do
they
it
told us,
online.
stop sending, we just sign them.
Or if it's
We don't read them.
updated, it's updated.
Right,
Or go online.
right. We're
Same
looking
stuff,
for ways to
different kid.
do that, but the state has to give us permission on certain things.
Same stuff, different kid.
Okay, exactly. You know. Restructuring the budgetary reserve. Okay, don't lose me here, don't lose me here. I need you to stick with me just for a little bit, we're almost done. Restructuring the budgetary reserve. Every district has a component of the expenditures that they put in as a just in case. Okay, and as you're putting something in as a just in case, generally you put it there for security purposes, okay? We don't have that luxury. We don't. We budgeted this year, it was budgeted at $400,000 for 16-17. We're going to budget it the same, but we're going to work with it differently. If there is something like the copiers, we know we need at least one new copier. That is going to be in the budgetary reserve. It used to be that that would sit in an expenditure code and someone would make the decision that, yep, we're going to spend that money. Nope, we're not doing that this time. We have got to move that and restrict it in the budgetary reserve. Therefore, if that money is there in their budgetary reserve and we find that it is needed, then we spend it, but it's only on that purpose. Okay, so $310,000 out of the $400,000 will no longer sit out here in account codes for people to touch. It's restricted in the budgetary reserve. That has to be. That's $310,000 that is not put in both places, basically, in my mind. Allowing employees to choose the health care, we just did that. Allowing them to have the PPO, but you're going to pay for the premiums on that PPO as a premium share. Offering a buyout for employees not to take insurance options. The professional staff has done this already in their contract, and there is a buyout. So if you have a spouse and you can be on their insurance, many times they charge you for your spouse to come onto your insurance. But if there is a buyout that we offer, it may pay for that and give you something extra for that. So we're going to do that as well. Eliminating the overtime of working with the custodial staff and promoting a new work schedule. The work schedule is noted as team cleaning. Okay, so we are not going to have people in every individual building working by themselves. Sometimes I think that's a security risk anymore. So we're moving them, and we've started doing this already. And the purpose of doing this is to ensure that as we're working on Saturdays, and Mr. Napo's team is here working on a Saturday, anybody who has a use of facility in is not having that, what do I want to say? We have the cost of the people being there, but it's not overtime. We're not paying the overtime out that we would have because they were working Monday through Friday. So we're shifting and we're using the team to clean things. So you got to get along with your team members. You got to make sure that it works. And they're doing it. And we talked to them about that. And they understood. Yes, let's move forward. Let's try it. let's give this a shot. Again, very, very good employees. No coaching stipends for postseason play and no increases for coaches. Evaluating all transportation routes, pickup, drop-offs, all of this. Okay, let me explain this. We have some routes that have not been looked at in 55 years. Okay? I'm not 55 yet. It's a long time. That's a very long time. So we need to spend the time in making sure that we are efficiently routing our buses, making sure that we have students at the stops that they're currently at, and if not, we need to be shifting all of that around. Okay? Deadhead miles. When you look at what reimbursements you get on the state formulas, you do get money back for your transportation providers, but it is not 100%. They thought, before we met with them, and as we were meeting with them, they thought that the state formula that we calculate what they're going to be paid on was fully reimbursed by the state. It is not. It's reimbursed about 40%. So the deadhead miles are I call them deadhead miles. I think that's the right term. Those are the miles that when the students are bussed in the morning, there's no students from when that bus leaves the school and the students are there all the way back to their bus barn until they come back and get them all the way back in the afternoon. Those miles cost us $3.50 a mile according to the state formula. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them, okay? So again, I go in, bright and chipper, meeting all these contractors, and I'm like, okay, and here's the reality. This is what we have to do. What suggestions do you have? They had suggestions. Some of them get 10% on top of state formula. They were willing to give that up. We are actually producing a bus run from the middle school that, I think it's the middle school. Where's Jeff? To Bosley's? Okay. Over to Bosley's. I don't know what that agreement was for or why, but every other provider of daycare has their own transportation. So I have to be speaking to them too, because that run cost us $20,000. Okay? Okay, you're catching on. I like that. We need to get rid of some of these things just to be in line with looking at everything. Transportation is a big one. We're going to evaluate the athletic purchases. I've talked with Evelyn, I've talked with Dan, and talking about making sure that we have schedules. You have to have a capital improvement schedule. You have to have a uniform cycle. You need these types of things before you can spend money. You know at your home how old your water heater is. You know when it's probably going to need to be replaced. You know when you put a roof on. We know those things too. But we need to take that from the largest capacities of capital improvements that we have down to the smaller dollar volumes. Okay, so we're looking at uniforms. We're looking at the pitching machines and the ball machines and everything that we have that way to see how old is it, when should we put it on the cycle, and how much money should we be budgeting a year for those things. That way, it's no surprises. It's consistency. We're developing that consistency. Okay, so we are looking for that. Eliminating any remaining cell phones that we might have. Maintaining the reduced positions through attrition. And I know Brandy spoke to you about this. This budget does not include the curriculum position replacement. We're going to use the IU. The 3 professionals that have been incented and are accepting that incentive to go, the IT employee, the 2 principals, 1 aide, and an educational technology staff person. Did I miss anybody on that? I feel like I did, but I don't. The aide, I have it. Okay. What I need you to understand is that that does not balance our budget yet. All right? And here's, again, the painful truth is sitting right here with this. I want you to know that I feel that. I understand. I have children. I know what this means. And I know how this impacts. And I also want you to understand the global. Because together, we have a greater voice to do something globally. We have a much larger voice if we're going to speak in volumes than you just singing by yourself. So here's a few things that we need to ensure for our future. What does balanced mean? What does it mean in your personal finances? What does a balanced budget mean?
You have enough money to cover expenses.
You have enough money to cover your expenses. The money that you have coming in on a consistent basis is covering the expenditures that you have on a consistent basis. Does it mean dipping into your savings account? No. But that is what districts are forced to do every single year. Our option is over. The speed at which we are moving is too fast. Okay? We have got to understand that balanced means that we are going to live within those revenue sources. We don't have any choice. This is what it is at this point. So how do we do that? Brandy talked about a few small things that we could use to increase some revenues. We're still talking about revenue opportunities, but for the most part, it is reducing your expenditures. Okay, so let's talk about, before we get to the timeline, let's talk about what does happen. How does this happen? What goes on? Say we throw caution to the wind and we're just going to run with it. We're going to run with it. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to change a thing that we do. What's going to happen? Insolvency. You all understand what insolvency means. In a personal or business capacity, it's a Chapter 11. Correct? Okay. So when we're talking about insolvency for a district, what does that look like and how do we not become there? Number one, you do what we have to do together. We work together to solve the problem, number one. Because no matter what you do, if you're not working to solve the problem together, you're still going to have a problem. Two things. We could borrow more money. I know. I know. Don't. I feel the raise back here. We could borrow more money and say, sure, we're going to take an unfunded general obligation bond and move it in so that we can continue operations. Who does that sound like? Sounds like our governmental systems. Right? That's not an option. It is an option if you have the capacity of changing. Okay? If you have that capacity to change where you are and take the hard hits, you could go out and you could borrow more money and do that. In my former life, I had to do that. I had to answer for a person who was the superintendent business manager who put us in a situation where we were in a negative $6 million spending practice, and it was awful. And we needed to go to Luzerne County and ask for an unfunded debt bond. And sitting on the stand, up in a courthouse, full of people just like you, it was not fun, because I was trying to answer for the sins of the past. And I couldn't do that. I had no idea of certain things that happened and why. But we took the money. But we made drastic changes, and those drastic changes paid off. The difference there versus here is that we never had to get into talks about personnel. Never. So it was a little bit of a different scenario. So you can do that. That's an option. You can throw caution to the wind and let the state come in, which you can see by all standards when Brandy is showing you those figures. How long do you think that would get us to with a cash flow? You know, her and I, we have a bet on it about what we both think that would be. And we're both saying about the end of 18-19, we'll physically have no money and need to borrow monies, like on a payroll basis. That's not where you want to live either, okay? And if that happens, you move into School Code Section 611, which talks about receivership. Do you know what a receivership is? Anybody? Okay, let me explain it to you. We're having discussions about what our budget is and how things are going to work. A receivership is the governor's appointment of individuals who will come in and take over everything. Your contracts are null and void. They get you back on track. Do you know how they do that? They make the tough decisions. But they do so based on a very linear, narrow vision. And that linear, narrow vision doesn't care if you want to sit here and talk about X, Y, Z. So if you want your input now, and we want your input now, We need to make this happen together. Okay? We cannot let this go to receivership. If you're interested in looking at receivership, look at Erie, look at Reading, look at Philadelphia, look at Chester Upland. It happens. They don't like it. The state doesn't even like doing it. Because what it means is that they're basically saying, we're just going to get you back on the straight and narrow. And then if you're lucky, they'll turn it back over for a while. Those are the things. So can we fix where we are? Absolutely. Absolutely we can fix where we are. But the conversations still need to keep taking place. It needs to be with the administrators and the board, and it needs to be with you, and it needs to be with the groups of employees and the people who are contracted with us. That's where the keys are. We have got to keep that as a line of communication open for everything to happen. Are these decisions going to be tough? Yes. Are they going to be things that we don't maybe want to hear? Yes. But are they going to be permanent? No. They're not going to be permanent. So we need that level of understanding and cooperation. Okay? All right. Now we'll open it back up for questions, and you can ask, oh, I'm sorry, board first. Board first.
Is this presentation going to be online on the district website?
We can put this presentation online. Actually, I'm doing it again for the teachers tomorrow and all of our staff tomorrow, because I felt that we should bring it here first, and then we need to be speaking to them. If they couldn't make it tonight, and many of you are here, we're going to be bringing this again tomorrow to the staff, to all staff in the district. Yes.
You had on one of your slides closing Roseland Valley.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's a discussion item. I was asked that question too. Are we having any conversations about closing Loyalsock Valley? No, we're not. We're good. We're good with that. So don't fret. You guys get the highest scores. You get the bonus ones. So,
Oh my
This particular example does not include any furloughed employees at this point. But you can see that it's still not balanced by 1.6 million. You're welcome.
Christina, if nothing is done, if no cost-cutting measures are put into place, and like Brandy showed, where we would be in the 18-19 budget, how much of a tax increase, if it was legal to raise it that way, how much of a tax increase to balance that 18-19 budget would this district need?
4 mils.
4 mils on 100, and that's what,
4 mils. 4 mils because we get $773,000 in a mill. And that, I think, was over 2.7 mils. So
that
at least
would,
4 mils.
that would be an assessment of $100,000, that person's taxes, if it was possible to do that, which it's not.
Correct.
But that person's taxes would have to go up $400 in 1 year, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And all that would,
On an assessment of 100.
On
Correct.
assessments of 100.
But our average
Is
is
117.
No, it went up.
Or did it?
It did go up. And I do have that here. 127,160.
and something, a point that I want to bring up about that average assessment, and somebody actually brought this to my attention, that is kind of misleading, that average assessment, because there are 6 trailer courts in this district, and that brings the average assessment down. Trailers, and there's nothing wrong with a trailer, I've lived in them before, but trailers aren't valued like a house, trailers aren't on a property like a house is. So the assessment on a trailer is much lower than it is on a house, which brings the average assessment down.
Just one other point that the legal
taxes is coming under scrutiny with our local, or with the politicians. There is gonna be rule, now you can change, you can raise it above, with exception, there's all kinds of exceptions. You can raise it above the state allowable increase, but there's talk of that being restricted, where there's gonna be no such thing as exceptions. Where it's,
Christine, isn't it already restricted? Is it 2 now? For 2 reasons. And
one is a flood, or that kind of,
Go ahead, Brandy. Special ed costs and users retirement.
that's the only 2 reasons why you can go above the Act 1 index now.
well, that's 2 reasons that are gonna be allowable to be used every year. The teaser's cost,
Christina,
so they're not restricted.
And actually, I've been doing some numbers myself. And over the last 10 years now, from 2005-6 to 2015-16, the tax increases for that 10 years has been 3.68 mils. That won't even pay our debt service, which means that we have to try to run a district. We are saddled with running a district on the same revenue that we got over 10 years ago. And that's going to last for 20 years. 4.7, an average of 4.7 mils every year will go to just towards the debt. Our debt, and Christina had it up there for, or Brandy did, for 15-16, and our debt was $2,504,468. It peaks out at $1,100,000 more than that. It peaks out at. So it's not just Peasers that's killing us. It's not wages that's killing us, or not just wages, which wages go up, but that's something you can figure. But the debt service is one of the biggest increases with Peasers that this district is going to have. And when you try to run a district on the same amount of money that you ran it 10 years ago, things have to change. And I'll be honest with you, when I came on this board and I asked questions, and I went to the district office, and I went to the business manager, until we got a new business manager and a new superintendent, I never got answers. And I was told by some people on this board and public that I was micromanaging. I was not micromanaging. I was trying to find out the stuff that I can now find out, and that disturbs me, because this, what we are trying to do right now, should have been started at least 3 years ago.
The past is the past.
Can we undo
Mr.
it?
Lowe, haven't you said that?
Can we undo
The
it?
past is the past.
The past is the past. I'm saying we are tasked
We're in this
with
together,
undoing
Ron.
the
All right.
We're all
Shush.
in this together.
Shush. Let him talk.
And believe me, I'm not putting I don't want to put the blame on anybody.
You are.
I think what it is, rather than me putting the blame on anybody, I'm saying that people weren't as involved and weren't getting educated like the administration that we have now in place. And I think that you can all thank these two people right here for helping.
Can I go back to the debt? When Brandy and I looked at the debt last night, when we were here, you have a piece of debt that has $8 million outstanding that was refinanced in 2014. A bond is callable. So if you buy bonds, public bonds, you are guaranteed so many years of interest on that bond. They call them. So then if the entity, the municipality, wants to take that money back and refinance it for cheaper interest rates, they will do that. We have that ability on the first bond that is the middle school bond, $8 million, taken, refinanced in 2014. If the interest rates are lower in 2019, we will do that. We will refinance that bond. In 2020, we will do that again for the bonds that were taken in 2015. So we hope that we can do our part too in making sure that the debt that we have can be re-looked at. Again, living documents, making sure that we're paying attention to those things. When you're talking about debt refinancing, again, you could be talking serious amounts of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on where the economy is at that point in time. So we need to keep looking for that too. I'm sorry, that's what I wanted to say about the debt. That we're going to continuously look for that refinancing opportunity so that if we have it, we'll take advantage of it. Anything else in the presentation? Do you want to finish this or you just want me to finish it? Oh, all right. Yes, go ahead.
I was wondering if you could maybe just somehow give a very simple explanation of an extremely complex subject. But less than a year and a half ago, the prior administration and board led everybody to believe that we were financially very solid and that things were good. You could afford a $38 million high school with another $20-some million worth of interest. And in no time ever was there any discussion that I'm aware of that would even remotely point to this financial, what I want to call disaster, unfolding. The only budget I voted on was only in effect for 4 months before, well actually 2 months before you showed up. And as you said tonight, you started working on this in October. So for the public, how can we go from everything's just fine, the train's on the tracks, and 6 months later, this is what we're facing here? I mean, there was no warning signs, nobody put up a red flag, nobody said anything. So you have these two diametrically opposed stories where previous board members and current board members, Mr. Olmer got up in a meeting and basically said he hid the money, and I guess we're just not smart enough to find it, and that basically everything was okay. So again, how do we get in 6 months from there to here?
And while you're thinking, Christina, I'll add to that in 3 years, actually, I crunched numbers for 10 years. Like I said before, this district was in good shape. It was in really good shape. We got a stimulus money from Obama. 2 years we received $500,000 extra monies from the federal government. It put our district in good shape, but the money kept being spent like we was still getting that stimulus money and we weren't. And from 2013 to 2016, we overspent as a district $1.786 million more than we got in. In other words, that's how much we spent more than our revenue. And that's with having tax increases.
Where do you go, Ron? Where did it go? You had the numbers, where did it go?
I can't answer that. I can't answer that because
Where's the money at? You're accusing the former board of misallocating money. So where is the money that you have calculated as loss?
I am saying that they were spending money.
Where was it spent? Teacher salaries, where was it spent? Tell everybody.
It was spent on peasers, it was spent on salaries, it was spent on transportation, medical insurance. It was spent on a lot. But when you have teachers that have class sizes of 2 and 3 students in them, and 8 and 9 in the high school,
No, that's not true.
I have the numbers.
I can help you explain those, if you need it. As I'm in the high school, I would be happy to sit down and explain that to you. I would take the time.
We do have some classes that do have 7, 8
And are those
students
last?
Because the college look
with them.
with you and
So,
discuss them.
and we do have some staff who
APRs.
teach classes that are 55% of the day teaching at the high school. So we do have to do some things there as well. We have yearbook that we teach during the day. That's not something that I've ever seen taught during the day. And I'm not attacking, I'm just saying these are the things that we really should be looking at to see what are our priorities as a group and speaking about them as a group.
My point that I'm trying to make is that when you see, and I don't blame the past board as much as I do the 2 people that were in charge of our district. Believe me, I don't blame the old board as much as I do those 2 people. And I know there's a lot of people that thought they was next to God. But when you see expenditures exceeding revenue, that meant 3 years in a row, you've got to look down the road and say, we can't continue to go. What was the plan? What was the plan when that fund balance reached 0? What was those people's plan? Now, we're the bad guys